Hey team, Coach Alexa here. Second video in my series on feet. Last week's was on blisters, probably the top running related foot complaint, and this second one is going to be primarily about our toenails. So those who've done longer training, racers perhaps, might have experienced black toenails, falling off toenails, all of that foot glory that we get as runners. And often, the underlying cause of those toenails kind of going black is effectively they've hit the end, they're hitting something, they're running into something, the nail is getting jolted around as you run on a repetitive basis, kind of damages the nail bed, detaches the nail partially from the nail bed, and then the toenail dies effectively and falls off and a new one grows. Not particularly pleasant or pain-free. So a few different reasons why that can happen. Primarily, I would say, is the fact that your shoes are either slightly the wrong fit, so they might be a little bit too short. You should, like you used to have shoe fittings when you were younger, decent amount of space at the end of your shoe when you're just stood in them, and between the end of your toes and the end of the shoe, because when we land, our arch flattens on, a foot effectively gets a little bit longer. So you do not want at any point in the gait cycle your toes hitting the end of the shoe or the top of your shoe. So fit is very, very important. And also look at the sort of size of your toes, the spread of your toes. So for me, unfortunately, due to pointy 90s shoes, the ball of my foot is slightly wider than my toes, so shoes that round in are fairly comfortable. But if your toes sort of are naturally slightly wider than the ball of your foot, then tapering shaped shoes are going to scrunch your toes together and again cause potential sort of collisions between toenails and other things. The other aspect of the sort of black falling off toenail thing is that maybe your toenails are a little bit too long. So you don't want to see too much of the white bit of the toenail as it grows out of the nail bed. So these are my fingernails. I'm a sports massage therapist, so they're always kept quite short. But you see what I mean, that there's a bit of sort of finger beyond the end of the nail, and that's what you want to look for with your toes as well. So it's not the nail that is sticking out beyond the sort of the fleshy or skin bit of your toe. Keeping them fairly short but not too rounded, so a slight square off at the edges, just depending on the shape of your toes and your feet, just to make sure your toes don't hit kind of get embedded, get ingrowing toenails. Effectively, more rounded toe shapes can raise the risk of ingrowing toenails. Sometimes if your toes are a little bit scrunched together like me, maybe it's more of a female thing, although quite a few men's shoes, particularly again in the 90s, I don't know what it was about the 90s and the early noughties, sort of are narrowed to a little bit more of a pointed end. You will have potentially sort of slightly squished toes that are coming together as opposed to going straight out of the end of your feet like your fingers do. And that can lead to the toes rubbing against each other, so either causing blisters in between themselves, or maybe a neighbouring nail of one toe starts to kind of cause irritation or dig a little hole into the next door neighbour. So having a little bit of lube between your toes, making sure those toenails are really nice and trimmed and filed. Or one of the solutions that I use and get on really well with is toe socks. So socks where each toe has its individual little pocket, and in the same way that sock acts as a little kind of layer that take away the friction between the foot and the shoe, these socks have a little layer that obviously takes away that friction and that rubbing in between individual toes. So if you get blisters in between your toes, or then toenails are sort of niggling into their next door neighbour toes or toenails, then toe socks might be worth a try. Hope that's useful. Any foot related queries, let me know as I continue my series into fascinating feet.